grew up together. I was 11, I would say he was about 10. Met at the beach. We were all swimming and stuff. I taught Cornelius how to swim that day, and then after that day from the beach, I never seen him again. And then I'll say about 6 months after that, we fell into each other in a residential facility, and that's when I met Cornelius again.
On April 29th, 16-year-old Cornelius Frederick threw a sandwich in the cafeteria of the Michigan foster care facility where he lived. Staff restrained him on the floor until he asphyxiated. According to a lawsuit filed by his aunt, his last words were, "I can't breathe."
We both funny, we always smiling, we both love rapping. He loved food, I just like cooking it.
Cornelius grew up in these neighborhoods in Detroit. He and his 4 siblings were scattered through the foster care system when their mom died 6 years ago. Did you have family situations in common?
We both didn't know our dad. His mom passed away when he was younger also. So it was never like, oh, Christian, you gotta go through this alone, because my best friend was right there to help me and tell me, like, it's okay, we both can make it through it, so.
Cornelius formed a strong bond with Will White, a counselor at his first residential foster facility, Wolverine.
That's the rose I was talking about for Cornelius from his candlelight vigil. We've been to the planetarium that's over here. There was basketball courts. They like to go and play in the fountain. He needed a little attention. He was rough around the edges. That was first impressions. And then moving forward, I began to find out he was a Sour Patch Kid. So sour on the outside most times, but really, really, really sweet on the inside. But I remember the day that he was leaving, we were in one of the lounge areas, and I could see him over there. He was shedding tears, but he kept wiping them real quick before anybody could look.
Cornelius lived in several facilities. Exactly where or how many is confidential. Then he was moved 150 miles from Detroit to Lakeside Academy in Kalamazoo. He wasn't allowed a cell phone and couldn't leave campus without permission.
He never spoke ill of the institutions he was in, so I'm not really sure if he actually had bad times prior to this, one occurrence. I'm not sure. We never talked about it.
You were really shocked when it happened.
Shocked, devastated, angry, hurt, just mixed emotions. It was tough. It's just not something that you want to hear, that one of the babies, one of the young men, somebody that you care for and love so much has passed.
CCTV footage from Lakeside shows 7 staff holding Cornelius down for almost 12 minutes. When they release him, he's limp and unconscious. Another 12 minutes pass before anyone calls 911 or tries CPR. Students and staff in the cafeteria seem unfazed by what's happening. Where were you the day that Cornelius got restrained at Lakeside?
So I was in an upper school working in the school store, and that's when I started seeing a lot of ambulances with police coming, but nobody was letting me go to the cafeteria. And a couple kids like, oh my gosh, Cornelius is in there dead. And I'm like, no, he's not, he's not, don't tell me that. And none of the staff was telling me like, oh, this is what happened. They were just telling me, he's fine, he's fine, he's fine, he's fine, he's fine. That bothered me, so I went down to the administration building and I gave them a piece of my mind, and I told them, like, why would you guys lie to me instead of telling me the truth? The inside of me, I'm crying and yelling and screaming.
Since 2007, Lakeside has been managed by Sequel Youth and Family Services, a for-profit company that runs facilities across the U.S. to house and treat foster kids, kids in the juvenile justice system, and kids with behavioral challenges. Lakeside had all 3. Its 125 boys came from as far away as California and Delaware, thousands of miles from their caseworkers, families, and communities. A Sequel spokesperson told us in a statement about Cornelius Frederick's death that restraint holds were supposed to be an emergency safety intervention when a student put themselves or someone else in imminent danger. They said training emphasizes de-escalation, and that the actions of staff who restrained Cornelius were not representative of our core values. But the 19 former staff and students we spoke to, many of whom knew Cornelius, gave a very different account of how Sequel ran Lakeside.
This was like a mini prison almost.
Staff said they were overworked, undertrained, and underpaid. Life was governed by strict rules. And residents said some used restraints to keep order. Were you surprised to hear what happened to Cornelius Frederick?
Unfortunately not. I knew something like that could happen. I had seen what the kids call dirty restraints before. Staff knew where the cameras were. Students knew where the cameras were. So if it didn't happen on camera, it didn't happen.
Did you ever witness those off-camera restraints?
I did. They were not fun to watch. I remember they put one particular student in the supine. Staff were cussing at him and humiliating him while he was in this restraint instead of helping him calm down and relax.
Our program director said that restraining kids is a last resort. But in my toolbox that you gave us, that is our only resort.
So this was what we were supposed to follow, our training checklist that was supposed to be completed within 60 days. I never got any signatures because it was never done. I never got the full training. Everything you learn from watching others. And there were good examples and there were bad examples. They hired anybody and everybody. The high school diploma was the minimum. Turnover was ridiculous.
How did they sell the job to you?
They sold it as like a restorative environment, but the language that they used was something that was really disturbing to me. Using words like destroy, attack, that we don't negotiate with terrorists.
The delinquent diamond. This is how we graded the kids every week.
So these are like personality types of kids on campus?
Yep, and it was a way to manipulate their personalities to get them to comply, basically.
It hurt hearing about my job from the news.
What's been wrong about the media coverage of Lakeside, in your opinion?
If you're going to scrutinize the stuff and talk about it and put it out there, at least talk about the good stuff, because there are kids there that needed us. There are kids there that looked forward to us coming every day. I will go to the store myself and buy kids stuff with my own money because I don't want that kid to feel how I felt growing up not having this.
Are you paid enough to do that?
No, I don't think I got paid enough. Do I think I was valued? Yes, I was valued by the kids. Do I think as a whole, I was, I guess, appreciated for what I did? No.
In June, the Kalamazoo prosecutor's office announced manslaughter charges against 2 staff members who participated in the restraint and the nurse who failed to intervene.
These are the person that we feel are most closely responsible for Cornelius's death.
Sequel spokesperson said they worked closely with law enforcement to ensure justice is served.
It's sad to see how quick it was for them to say, oh, we're going to agree with all the charges.
So you think Sequel is scapegoating the staff members that were charged?
Absolutely. They're definitely scapegoating because the conversation in the media is, why are they automatically going to excessive force? And you're not backing up your staff members like, oh, because we taught them that.
A 2-month investigation of the incident by Michigan's Department of Health and Human Services also found Sequel responsible because management failed to ensure staff followed correct protocols. How much is Sequel responsible for what happened to Cornelius?
I think that was one of the things that was most troubling to me, was to see how the young people who lived there and the staff acted like this wasn't a big deal. And to me, that said that there was a culture at Lakeside that allowed this to happen. And Sequel managed and created that culture.
You terminated the license of Lakeside. How rare is that?
It is a really rare event, but I think for everyone who has heard about Cornelius's tragic life and death at Lakeside, there was no doubt that that was the appropriate action in this case. And the reality is that if you look deeper in our numbers, what you see is that Black and brown children are more likely to end up in congregate care settings. And they're more likely to stay in our foster care system for too long a period of time. And Cornelius, I think, represents those two unfortunate outcomes and the tragedy that can happen as a result.
Sequel still serves around 10,000 people annually in 52 facilities. But Lakeside has been shut down. After Cornelius died, students rioted, saying that they didn't feel safe. Christian was arrested during the riot, and a judge finally allowed him to move back to Detroit to live with his aunt.
Whatever happened with Cornelius, if that would have never happened, probably to this day, I'd probably still be at Lakeside. I had to go to jail just to be able to get freedom.
Where do you think the kids in residential facilities should be?
So there's some kids in there that committed crimes, and like, yeah, you got to serve time for the crime you did. But then it's kids there that, like me, foster care kids, like, we're here because we don't have a family, and like, it gets to me sometimes when I think about it, like, it's pretty bold, like how the system will find a real easy way to make money.
How does it make you feel to know that you're profit?
I feel like I don't feel like I'm a slave, but like that's what my mindset was. It's like they try to treat me like I'm a slave, like, oh, sit here and be here, and then we'll move you somewhere else. Like they just pass me around like it's basketball or something, and that's not how I like it to be. Like,
oh, come on, man, grab it, boy, you ain't gotta go. Let's play for real.
America is grappling with George Floyd's asphyxiation under the knee of a police officer, and a growing number of people are calling for justice for Cornelius. They say his death is yet another example of the violence Black citizens face at the hands of authorities, and that his name belongs front and center in today's civil rights movement.
He was a kid that wanted to be loved. That Wolverine, he did whatever he could to make sure he was in good graces. A sandwich was not grounds for a restraint. I felt that I had every need to go and be there for somebody that I profess that I love. So we made an actual sign for him.
I'd love to see it.
Okay, give me 1 second.
That's awesome. So you made the sign right before the rally?
Yes. As a sign just saying justice for Cornelius, because I've seen a lot of, social media posts for other individuals who face similar types of brutality.
What's the relationship between what happened to Cornelius and what happened to victims of police brutality that we've been hearing about?
Having an individual still determine that you might not be telling the truth, or still determine that they have no regards for you, saying you can't breathe, as if they are able to tell what your body is going through. When you have people that might seem forgotten about, it's easy to mess over them and treat them however you want, because you know that there might not be any pushback, or there might not be anybody that will come to their defense. And I believe in this case, the individuals involved in this situation thought wrong.
Because Cornelius had you.
He had me, he had a slew of individuals. He had an aunt that loved him and that's fighting for him on a different end. He had young men that he called brothers that he was in placement with, who all showed up.
What do you think that us as a society should do differently in terms of how we look at kids in the foster system?
We should be more gentle.